Hello and welcome back to yet another video on the Alejandro Hernandez podcast. These are going to be my official picks for the Week 7 slate of the NFL season. We're coming off a pretty good week. We went 10-5 straight up last week and then 8-7 against the spread, so we had a winning record both straight up and against the spread. For the year, that brings us around just over 60% straight up, and then we're only one game under 500 against the spread, so I definitely want to get that over 500 against the spread this week. We're going to try to do that, as well as get us back up to where I want to be straight up, which is over 70%. So without further ado, let's get into this video. For the first game, it's going to be tonight, Steelers versus Bengals, and the trend has been over the past 2 or 3 weeks, Thursday Night Football has seen two massive upsets. 2 weeks ago, the Niners as 8.5-point underdogs won straight up against the Rams, and then last week, my Giants beat the Philadelphia Eagles in a blowout. And I'm going to continue the trend. I think the Cincinnati Bengals pull off the upset tonight at home against the Steelers. And I think it's going to be because of the annual Mike Tomlin trap game. It's this superstition that I've noticed over the past couple of years when the Steelers enter a game, especially in primetime, the Steelers will enter a game as big favorites and they're trending in the right direction. Everything looks great for Pittsburgh. And then they go on the road on Thursday Night Football and lay an egg. Last year it happened to them against the Browns when I believe they were 10-3 and they played like the 4-9 Browns. And Jameis Winston got the job done at home on Thursday Night Football. I believe it happens again this week. I think Joe Flacco will turn back the clock and lead the Bengals to victory on Thursday night. And really, if I were to give you I can't really give you a logical explanation as to why I think the Bengals are going to win this game. It also got revealed that Trey Hendrickson has been ruled out from this game, so now the Bengals are without their best defensive player. If I look at any statistic, if I look at the past 5 games, everything tells you to take Pittsburgh. And it's been the same case the past couple of weeks. Last Thursday night, I picked the Giants to cover the spread, but they had just lost to the Saints. So no one in their right mind was going to pick the Giants to beat the Eagles on Thursday night because they had just lost to the Saints, yet they did it anyway. The week before that, the Niners have their entire team injured and they still pull it off. So I think Joe Flacco is going to turn back the clock for absolutely no reason. I expect a big game from Jamar Chase, a big game from T. Higgins. I expect Joe Flacco to throw the ball really, really well against the Steelers defense. I think it's going to be pretty high scoring. I think the Bengals can allow some points on defense, but I think ultimately Joe Flacco will outgun Aaron Rodgers tonight and lead the Bengals to victory. And that is going to be it for Thursday night's prediction. Let's now move on to the Sunday slate. With the London game in the morning, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Los Angeles Rams. I'm going to pick another upset. I have the Jaguars winning this game. I believe they're 2.5 or 3.5 point dogs to the Los Angeles Rams. And historically, the Jaguars have been a very, very good team in London. They have dominated the London games. And I think this is a bad spot for the Rams. In this particular game, they are going to be without their superstar receiver, Puka Nacua. And I believe the offense really ran through him to start the season. He was leading the league in pretty much every metric in yards and receptions and targets. Now he's out of the lineup. And I believe that's a huge loss for the Rams that will have an effect in this game. And I think that's an advantage Jacksonville because now they get to solo in and key in on Devontae Adams in the passing game. Because outside of Adams, who is the reliable receiving threat in the Rams offense? Tyler Higbee, Tutu Atwell is also questionable. I don't think the Rams have a lot of reliable targets outside of Adams in this game, and I believe that plays into the Jaguars' benefit. And on the other side of the ball, I also expect Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne to get going. And they struggled against the Seahawks. Granted, the Seahawks defense is pretty good. However, I also think that Trevor Lawrence has played well in London, and Travis Etienne has also performed very, very well in London as well. So I expect Etienne to have a big game on the ground. Derrick Henry ran for over 100 yards on the Rams defense this past week, and I expect Etienne to do the same. And I also expect Matthew Stafford to struggle because he is later in his career. He is up there in age, and he's a way better home quarterback than he is a road quarterback. And this time the Rams are going all the way to London. So I expect Stafford to struggle. I expect the Rams to have a couple miscues in special teams, which has been killing them the past couple of weeks. I expect them to have a miscue in special teams. The Jaguars will take advantage and win the game. So give me Jacksonville to win as an underdog in London against the Rams. Now for the 1 p.m. slate, we have the Chicago Bears versus the New Orleans Saints. I'm going to be taking the Bears and the points. The spread is set at -4.5. I like Chicago to win and cover. Caleb Williams got the biggest win of his career on Monday Night Football against the Commanders. I had predicted the Bears to get the upset, and they did just that. I was so proud of Caleb Williams. That game really felt like it was refs versus Bears, and the Bears beat both the refs and the Commanders in that game. Jaden Daniels made some critical mistakes. The Bears took advantage. And in this spot, the Bears are coming back home to Soldier Field, and there's a lot of excitement around the team now because the fan base thinks they have a legit chance to make the playoffs this year, and I do as well. I very well could see the Bears sneaking into the playoffs as the number 7 seed, and I believe this is a game you have to win if you want to do that. I believe Ben Johnson is going to have his squad ready and prepared, and I think DeAndre Swift is going to have a great game. Since he had a great game against Washington, he's playing another, I guess, subpar defense in the Saints, and I think DeAndre Swift has a great game. They might be without DJ Moore, but if they are, then Luther Burden is going to step up. He led the team in receiving yards outside of, in the wide receiver core, Luther Burden led the team in receiving yards on Monday Night Football. So if DJ Moore is out, I expect that door to open for Luther Burden to break out. And then on the other side of the ball, the Bears defense has been great at forcing turnovers. They've been getting interceptions frequently the past couple of weeks. In the Week 4 game against the Raiders, they had a couple picks off Geno. And then in this game against the Commanders, they had 3 takeaways. So I expect the Bears defense to be opportunistic, DeAndre Swift to get the run game going, and then Caleb Williams will have another good performance. I expect the Bears to win and cover at home. Now for the next game, it's going to be the Cleveland Browns versus the Miami Dolphins. This is probably going to be the worst game of the week by far in terms of entertainment. It's not. I think it's going to be a really bad game because the wins projected for that game are going to be between 35 to 40 miles an hour. That means that teams are really going to struggle to throw the football. You have Tua and Dylan Gabriel, probably the worst quarterback matchup we're going to see all year. I expect this to be a game dominated within the trenches. The Browns have the way better offensive line, the way better defensive line, so that makes this pick very easy for me. I'm going with the Cleveland Browns to win and cover. I expect not DeAndre Swift. I expect Quinshon Judkins to dominate this game on the ground. They're probably going to give him 25 plus carries in this game. And I believe the Browns are going to run the ball way better than the Dolphins are capable of running the ball. The Browns are at home. I think this is probably one of the easier picks of the weekend. I'm going with the Cleveland Browns to beat the Miami Dolphins handedly. I think they're going to stop the run very well on defense. They're going to get some sacks on Tua. They're going to take advantage of that weak Dolphins offensive line. And on the flip side, they're going to power run the football down the Dolphins' throat. I think Quinshon Judkins has a massive game. So give me the Browns to win and cover the spread, which is set at -2.5 at home. Now for the next game, it's going to be the New England Patriots versus the Tennessee Titans, a revenge game for Mike Vrabel. I love the Patriots in this spot. Give me the Patriots to win and cover the spread, which is set at -6.5. So all they have to do is win by a touchdown and they cover. I expect Drake May, who's been playing as a top 5 quarterback this season, to continue playing at a high level. And I think this is the game. I said it last week that TreVeyon Henderson should have broken out against the Saints. He didn't, but I think this is the game that TreVeyon Henderson finally gets going on the ground and has an explosive game. And I expect the Patriots to win and cover in a blowout. The Titans just fired their head coach, finally, in Brian Callahan. That was way overdue. He was ruining Cam Ward's development, and I think now the Titans can finally start moving in the right direction. Not this season, but definitely in the offseason if they bring in an experienced head coach. I believe any coach in the league is going to be attracted to this job because Cam Ward is so talented. And as long as they bring in the right general manager and the right coach, they can build around Cam Ward correctly. But as far as this season goes, this season is gone for the Titans. It's completely gone. And I think they're just in disarray right now. They have no organization on the offensive or the defensive side of the ball. The Patriots are buttoned up. They're going to win this game, and they're going to cover the spread in a blowout, giving the Patriots to win and cover the line, which is set at -6.5. Now for the next game, it's going to be the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Las Vegas Raiders. If you guys saw my last video, I had the Chiefs ranked as the best team in the NFL. So there's no surprise as to why they're 12.5-point favorites in this game, and I'm going to take them to cover the spread. I think the Chiefs win and cover the spread, which is set at -12.5. Patrick Mahomes is playing MVP level football, and on the flip side, Geno Smith is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. So I expect the Chiefs defense to get takeaways off Geno Smith in that offense. They're one of the best teams in the league at stopping the run, which is exactly what the Raiders want to do to be successful with Ashton Jeanty. So I think Jeanty has a rough game on the ground. The Chiefs stuff that up, and then on the flip side, the Raiders are going to be without Brock Bowers and possibly Jacoby Myers. So they're depleted in their receiving core. That's bad for Geno Smith. And then they're going to stack the box against Ashton Jeanty, force the Raiders to pass the ball, which is going to open up opportunities to take away the ball. And on the flip side, the Raiders defense has no hope at stopping the Chiefs offense with Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes. So give me the Chiefs to win and cover and win in dominant fashion and cover the spread, which is set at -12.5. Now for the next game, it's going to be the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Minnesota Vikings. Now we're entering the territory of this slate where it's very, very narrow margins. There's a lot of games that are coin flips, and this is one of them. And honestly, I'm not confident in the pick, but I'm fading Philadelphia. I'm going to take the Vikings to win the game. I think Philadelphia is just on a downhill trajectory, and I don't think they bounce back this week. They're facing a Vikings team off a bye week. Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores have had over a week, well, technically 2 weeks if you count in the bye and this week, to prepare for this Philadelphia Eagles offense. And honestly, until they fire Kevin Patulio, I don't trust the Eagles. I think with Kevin Patulio as their offensive coordinator, they are so predictable. Even Lane Johnson called them out on it. They are extremely predictable on offense, and this Vikings defense with Brian Flores is going to cause a lot of trouble for Jalen Hurts and that Philadelphia Eagles offense. So I expect the Vikings defense to dominate this game. I think the Eagles, who have scored 17 points in back-to-back weeks, I think they don't crack 20 points. And on the flip side, the Vikings offense is coming off a bye week. I believe they're going to establish the run with Jordan Mason the same way that the Giants were able to establish the run with Cam Scatterbo. And the week before that, J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey had a good game. So I expect on the flip side, the Vikings are also at home. They're slight underdogs in this game. They're plus 2.5. I like them to win straight up because I think their defense is going to lead them to victory. And on the flip side of the ball, I'm not sure who's going to be in at quarterback, whether it's Carson Wentz or J.J. McCarthy. I will be worried in this game if J.J. McCarthy is the quarterback, but if it's Carson Wentz, then he has been getting the ball effectively to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, so I expect him to do the same in this game. If Carson Wentz is the quarterback, I believe the Vikings, I would confidently pick the Vikings to win this game if Carson Wentz is the quarterback, and I believe he will be. So with all that being said, give me the Vikings to win at home as slight underdogs to the Philadelphia Eagles. I believe the slump continues for Philadelphia. Now, for the next game, it's going to be the New York Jets versus the Carolina Panthers. And I'm not confident in the pick, but I'm going against the trend. I'm going for the trend, which is Carolina is 3-0 at home and 0-3 on the road. This game is in New York. The Jets are 0-6. They're due for a win. They almost got it last week against the Broncos. I'm going to take them to beat the Carolina Panthers at home. I think the Panthers do not travel well. They're great at home, and they're really bad on the road, so I expect the Jets to win this game. I think it'll be ugly. I think their defense gets a ton of turnovers off Bryce Young, and they stopped the run effectively last week against J.K. Dobbins in that Broncos run game. I expect them to do the same against the Panthers this week with Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard. So I expect the Jets to get stops on defense, to get turnovers on defense. The Jets are going to be without Garrett Wilson, but I do expect them to lean on the running game with Breece Hall. So I think Justin Fields is going to use his legs as well. So I expect big games on the ground for the Jets against that Panthers run defense with Justin Fields and Breece Hall. And then on the flip side, I expect them to create some turnovers off Bryce Young and stop the run game for the Panthers. So give me the Jets to beat the Panthers. I'm not confident in the pick. The Jets are winless for a reason, but I do think they are due and they get the win this week against Carolina. Now, we're going to move on to the 4:25 slate. The first game is going to be the Denver Broncos hosting my New York Giants. I'm going to take the Broncos to win the game, but I'm going to take the Giants to cover the spread, which is set at plus 6.5. I think the Giants are playing great football right now. Great football. In Jackson Dart's 3 starts, they've gotten off to very fast starts. They've had opening drive touchdowns in all 3 games. I expect them to have a fast start once again in this Denver game. However, I think their defense does settle in. The Broncos defense does settle in. I think this is a low-scoring game because I think our defense, the Giants defense, can get some stops on Bo Nix. The Broncos were held to 13 points by the Jets defense. I think the Giants defense is pretty good, and I think they're better than the Jets on defense. So I expect them to get some pass rush on Bo Nix, make him uncomfortable, and I expect us to have a decent game on offense, but we might have a couple turnovers. I expect this to be a close game. I'd say within the low 20s to high teens. I'd say 21-17, 20-17 in favor of Denver. I think they win in the fourth quarter on either a game-winning drive or the Giants are driving down the field to win the game and they don't get it done against that defense. So I think the Giants lose in narrow margins. I think the Broncos will win close, but the Giants will cover the spread, which is set at plus 6.5. So I think Dart is going to struggle against this Broncos defense. Maybe not out the gate because the Giants have gotten to fast starts out the gate, but as the game progresses, I expect that Denver pass rush to get home on Dart, make him uncomfortable, and we'll see where it goes from there, but I expect the Broncos to win and the Giants to cover. Now for the next game, it's going to be the Chargers versus the Colts. Another coin flip game. I'm going to take the Chargers to win. It was reported today that Joe Alt, their star tackle, has returned to practice. That is a huge guy that's coming back into the lineup for the Chargers potentially, and I expect Justin Herbert to simply outplay Daniel Jones. That's what it comes down to for me. I know Jonathan Taylor in that run game for Indianapolis is going to be successful against the Chargers, and last week and the 2 weeks prior, the Chargers have struggled to stop the run. So Jonathan Taylor is probably due for a big game. However, when it comes down late in the fourth quarter, I do expect this game to be close. I don't think the Colts are capable of blowing out the Chargers, especially on the road. So I expect this to be a close game in the fourth quarter. Which quarterback do I like in the fourth quarter, Justin Herbert or Daniel Jones? Give me Justin Herbert 10 times out of 10. I think he gets it done with a late fourth quarter comeback, and the Chargers win this game at home and improve to 5-2. Now for the next game, it's going to be the Dallas Cowboys versus the Washington Commanders. Another coin flip game. I'm going to take the Cowboys to win at home. Dak Prescott has been an awesome home quarterback just all season. It doesn't matter if he's on the road or at home, but especially at home, he's been very, very impressive. I think this game's an absolute shootout. The over-under is set at 55.5. I believe it's the highest over-under of the entire season. And I expect that the Cowboys will come out on top with a late fourth quarter comeback. And I think Jaden Daniels there's this narrative surrounding Jaden Daniels that he's going to be on the sophomore slump, and I expect that to continue in this game. I think Dallas's defense is capable of making a couple plays to keep them in this game, and ultimately I think with now CeeDee Lamb coming back, this Cowboys offense is officially at full strength. You guys, Dak Prescott, Jake Ferguson, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Javonte Williams. This offense is probably the best in the NFL, if I'm being honest. It's going to be a shootout. I expect Dallas to make a couple more plays than Washington. This is the first matchup we're going to get between Dak Prescott and Jaden Daniels. I expect it to be absolute cinema, and I have the Cowboys winning it late in the fourth quarter. And I'm pretty confident in the pick, honestly. I think Dak Prescott is going to outduel Jaden Daniels in this game and get his team to victory. Now for the next game, it's going to be the Green Bay Packers versus the Arizona Cardinals. I like the Packers to win, but I do expect the Cardinals to cover the spread, which is set at plus 6.5. I've taken the Packers as big favorites in 3 straight games, and they have failed to cover the spread in all 3 games. I took them against the Browns to cover the spread. They lost outright. I took them to cover the spread against Dallas. They tied. I took them to cover the spread against the Bengals, and the Bengals covered. So I expect the Packers to win the game on the road in Arizona. Whether it's Kyler Murray or Jacoby Brissett, I think that defense is good enough to stop the Cardinals' offense. And on the flip side, I expect Jordan Love, especially Josh Jacobs, who's performed excellent the past 2 weeks, to continue that streak of touchdowns. So I expect the Packers' offense to run the ball, Jordan Love to play off play action. He has one of his weapons coming back this week in Christian Watson. So now he's got Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, and Matthew Golden. And I expect the Packers to win this game. However, I expect the backdoor cover to be open for Arizona. So give me the Packers to win the game, but the Cardinals to cover the spread, which is set at plus 6.5 because the Packers cannot cover the spread as big favorites so far this season. And now let's move on to Sunday Night Football. Falcons versus 49ers. I expect the Falcons to win this game. I believe they're one of the most underrated teams in the NFL currently. Michael Penix and Bijan Robinson and Drake London have been outstanding to start the season. And fun fact, the Falcons are actually 2-0 in primetime this season. They beat the Vikings on the road in week 2, and then they just beat the Bills at home. So I think it's time to start taking the Falcons seriously, especially defensively. I'm impressed with what Raheem Morris has done on the defensive side of the ball for this Falcons team. They're one of the best teams against the run, and they're one of the best teams against the pass. They've been shut down all season. They had one anomaly of a game against the Panthers where they lost 30-0, but pretty much other than that, they lost by a walk-off missed field goal by Younghoe Koo in the first game. And then they got blanked by the Panthers, but other than that, they've looked spectacular the rest of the way. They've beaten 3 good teams. They beat the Vikings in week 2, they beat the Commanders in week 4, and they just beat the Bills. So I think it's time to take the Falcons serious, and the Niners, I believe, have too many injuries on the defensive side of the ball. I think Bijan has a great game, Drake London has a great game, and whether it's Mac Jones or Brock Purdy in at quarterback, I expect it to be Mac Jones. I expect the Falcons defense to perform well against that Niners offense. And I think ultimately the Falcons win. It'll be close, but I expect Michael Penix and Bijan Robinson to close the game for the Falcons and win them the game on the road in San Francisco. I expect them to improve to 3-0 in primetime this season, which will be very impressive. And I think the Falcons will put the league on notice if they haven't already. I think they did against Buffalo on Monday night, and I believe they will do it again on Sunday night against the Niners. So give me the Falcons to win on Sunday Night Football as underdogs. Now for Monday Night Football, it's going to be the Buccaneers versus the Lions. I love the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are my NFC Championship pick for this season. However, this game, I believe they're simply outmatched. Detroit coming off an embarrassing loss to the Chiefs. I think Dan Campbell is going to have that locker room fired up. The Lions are going to have Their full offensive core ready. They have Jared Goff, Jahmyr Gibbs, Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta. They're going to have all those guys healthy. And on the flip side, the Bucs are only getting Mike Evans back, and they're going to have Bucky Irving, Emeka Ibuka, and Chris Godwin all out. And on the defensive side of the ball, the Bucs also have a couple injuries as well. So I expect the Lions. I don't think this game's going to be close. I think it's going to be a blowout in Detroit's favor. I expect them to run the ball extremely well with Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery, and Jared Goff is going to be comfortable playoff play action. And then on the flip side, I think Baker, he won't struggle. I think the Bucs will manage to put up some points, but the Lions are going to put up way too many points. I expect the Lions to go over 30 points in this game, and Baker Mayfield won't be able to keep up. So give me the Lions to win and cover the spread, which is set at -5.5. And now for the final game, we have the Houston Texans versus the Seattle Seahawks. I like the Seahawks to win, but the Texans to cover the spread, which is set at +3.5. Sam Darnold has been one of the league's best quarterbacks this season. However, the Texans are coming off the bye, and the Texans are allowing only 12.3 points per game this entire season. So the Texans defense has been excellent, and I expect this game to be low scoring. Seattle's defense has also been great, and the Texans offense has struggled. So I expect the Seahawks to win a very, very close game. I think it's a walk-off field goal by Jason Myers that gets it done in this game. And CJ Stroud, I believe, is going to struggle against that Texans defense. Against that Seattle defense. And on the flip side, the Texans are going to stop the run, and they're probably going to have Derek Stingley follow Jackson Smith and Jigba. So that's going to be a very good matchup to watch out for. But I expect the Seahawks at home to pull out a close victory and improve to 5-2. And that is going to be it for this week's picks. I will see you guys next week when I release my top 10 teams in the NFL after week 7.